It's crazy to think that most people start the day already sabotaging their own lives. And they don't even realize it. They wake up saying, "It's going to be hard. One more day. I'm tired." Without knowing that these words are not harmless. They are decrees, direct orders to the subconscious, which in turn controls their entire day as if it were on autopilot. And the worst part? It obeys without question. For decades, science ignored what the ancient masters already knew. What you say first thing in the morning reprograms your biology. Yes, that's not a metaphor. It's pure biology. Your words release signals which activate hormones, which generate behaviors, which create reality. And it all starts there, in the first 5 minutes after you open your eyes. 5 minutes. A sacred field. A silent laboratory of creation. What I'm going to reveal to you in this video is not a new technique, it's a forgotten science. Something I mixed with epigenetics, neuroscience, and practical spirituality. It's simple, it's powerful, and if applied, first thing in the morning, it can have visible effects in up to 24 hours. I've seen it change the energy of a home, the dynamics of a relationship, even open professional paths. That's why I call it immediate creation protocol. But be careful, it's not enough to repeat like a parrot. There's a right way to do it. There's a reason. There's an exact moment. And most importantly, there's a vibration that needs to accompany each word. And that's what I'm going to show you now. A sentence, a choice, a new reality. And it all starts at dawn. When I open my eyes in the morning, I realize that I am not yet fully an I, but rather a consciousness in transition. It is at this point between dream and reality that the EI's subconscious is most accessible. No conscious resistance has yet formed, and that is why that moment is sacred. Every time I wake up, I know that I am standing before a rare window, the mind in the alpha state, and in this state, every thought I choose is like a code that will program the entire day. I have tested this countless times, including in the laboratory. All I had to do was wake up with a feeling of genuine gratitude, even for no apparent reason, for harmonious events to arise over the hours. The curious thing is that it didn't even have to be something grand, an unexpected message, a gesture of affection, a brilliant idea. Everything came as a direct consequence of the vibrational quality with which I started the day. Science confirms what was previously seen as mysticism. Frequency is language. I never start my mornings automatically, like someone who presses a button. There is a brief but decisive moment when I consciously choose the tone of my journey. I do not let fear, anxiety, or any unconscious pattern take over before I do. The secret is to take charge at this 0 point. This is where the creator and creation are still glued together, and I use that glue. Years ago, I replaced the habit of picking up my phone when I woke up with something more valuable, intention. Instead of consuming the world outside, I prefer to tune in to the world inside. I take a deep breath, put my hand on my chest, and mentally declare, "Today is a new field of possibilities." This phrase immediately aligns me with the quantum field. It's not a mystical ritual, it's neuroscience applied to everyday life. I realize that when I wake up, my mind is still half open, like a door that is slowly closing. And if I leave, this door open to worries, they come in and take over the space. But if I fill it with coherent affirmations, coherent with what I want to experience, everything changes. I have seen patients change their depression just by practicing rewriting the first 5 minutes of the day. What is repeated becomes a program, and every program generates behavior. I know it sounds too simple, but simplicity is key. Many people look for miraculous methods when the real miracle lies in waking up and listening to themselves. Repeating a phrase like, "I am pure possibility" with conviction, for example, transforms the body. Cells listen. And when they hear lofty affirmations, they adjust. This is epigenetics in action. Biology adapts to the environment the mind creates. Waking up and recognizing this moment as sacred requires practice, of course, but mainly presence. I'm not talking about religiosity, but about reverence for that which can change the direction of everything. Each morning is a new chance to enter a different timeline, and if I wake up aware of this, I have already begun to live before I even get out of bed. It is this type of awakening that activates true human potential, and while the world is still yawning, I am already sailing in the field of possibilities, watering the thoughts I wish to see blossom. Because if I don't do this, the second topic will explain exactly what happens when you plant in the wrong garden. I've always seen my mind as a constantly growing garden. And like any garden, it doesn't decide for itself what will sprout. That depends on the seeds I choose to sow. A positive thought, when felt sincerely, is like a flower opening to the sun. Even a recurring concern, even a small one, has the strength of a weed. The choice of what grows is made every day in the first few hours. For a long time, I let my mornings be contaminated by automatic phrases. It's going to be busy. I woke up tired. Without realizing it, I was sowing chaos even before coffee. Until I understood the mind does not judge. She just reaps what has been sown repeatedly with emotion. And if the soil is fertile, even fear will flourish if it is watered frequently. I then began to observe each sentence that emerged, without my calling it, and I realized that many of them were not even mine. They came from childhood, from culture, from collective beliefs. It was as if someone had thrown toxic seeds into my mental garden while I was sleeping. And the most dangerous thing? I myself was the one watering these seeds every day with my attention. It was time to take on the role of conscious gardener. Replaced "it's going to be hard" with "today is an opportunity for expansion." And it was like swapping poison for fertilizer. Each morning, I chose phrases that weighed like flowers, not stones. I said, "I deserve the best. Everything is in my favor." At first, it seemed strange, even forced, but sincere repetition takes root, and when the root is good, the fruit comes naturally. Science has shown that neural repetition creates pathways in the brain as if the mind were clearing paths in tall grass. And if I kept repeating the same negative thoughts, I reinforced those pathways. It was like always walking the same bumpy road, even though there were other, more beautiful routes. So I changed my path. I started repeating what took me where I wanted to go, not where I feared I would go. I noticed something curious. The people around me started to change too. Not because I asked, but because my frequency changed. It's as if the garden of my mind has begun to exude a new scent, attracting lighter connections, more aligned opportunities. And it all started there, with the simple gesture of choosing the right seed at dawn. A sentence, an emotion, a new focus. Today, before I even get up, I ask myself, what do I want to plant? Sometimes it's peace, other times courage. There are days when I choose abundance. But the point is, I choose. I no longer let chance decide what will bloom, because even the silence of the mind is a choice. And when you don't plant anything, the weeds grow on their own. Now, when we understand how this inner garden works, it becomes impossible to ignore the impact of the mind on reality. And that is exactly what led me to study what Earl Nightingale called the strangest secret. I'll never forget the first time I heard Earl Nightingale say, "We become what we think most about." That wasn't just a catchphrase, it was a scientific formula disguised as simple wisdom. I'd been studying epigenetics and cell biology, and it all made sense. Thoughts aren't neutral. They literally shape our destiny. Our brains, our bodies, and even our environments respond to the vibrational content of our minds. And that's not belief, it's physiology. Nightingale was right to call this the strangest secret, because it is truly strange to realize that the life you lead is a direct reflection of the mental frequency you maintain. When I thought about scarcity, even though I had resources, everything seemed lacking. When I began to vibrate gratitude, even when faced with challenges, everything seemed to flow. The dominant thought is the conductor of reality, and the universe, the orchestra that obeys. I noticed that the most successful people I knew, scientists, entrepreneurs, artists, had a common pattern, a morning ritual of clarity. This wasn't just cheap motivation. They were determining what they were going to think before the day decided for them. Just as I was doing with my cells in the lab, they were programming their biology with conscious intention. The mind is a tool, but if you don't direct it, it directs you. I began to experience this in practice. As soon as I woke up, I would set key phrases like, "Today, I create extraordinary possibilities." And I would stay firm in this vibration even when something tried to knock me off balance. It's like adjusting a radio. If I keep tuning in, the frequency stabilizes. And so, reality begins to reorganize itself around my intention, like iron filings around a magnet. Over time, I've come to understand that it's not about forcing positive thinking. It's about identifying the dominant thought and consciously deciding which one should occupy that space. If I spend more time saying, "This will work out," then "it will be hard," the balance starts to tip in my favor. Emotions follow thoughts, and actions follow emotions. The whole cycle starts in the mind. I began teaching this in lectures around the world, and the reaction was always the same: surprise. How could something so simple be so powerful? But that's where the beauty lies. The mind was made to create, not just react. Once I understood this, I began to use the brain as an internal laboratory, and each new morning became a living experiment, a testing ground where thought becomes matter. This understanding did not nullify science, it expanded it. Because true science is not cold, it is alive, dynamic, and open to the unseen. Spirituality enters here not as dogma, but as an extension of biological understanding. The mind creates impulses, the body responds, and reality mirrors. It is a closed circuit, and thought is the spark that ignites it all. With this foundation, I understood that thinking alone is not enough. You need to declare, order, and give verbal form to what you want. And it was from there that I discovered the true power of the decree. I've always been fascinated by the idea that words are more than just sounds. They are commands, instructions to the universe, signals sent into the quantum field. When Earl Nightingale talked about how we become what we think most about, I already understood the theory. But practice took me to a new level. That's when I learned the true power of decree. Decreeing isn't just thinking positively, it's affirming with all the force of our essence. Every word that comes out of my mouth carries with it a vibrational intention. This is real. When I say, "I am the creator of my reality," the universe doesn't just hear the words, it feels the energy that accompanies those words. The emotion, the confidence, the certainty that lie behind each statement. That's what creates a tangible shift in the field of possibility. The difference between a thought and a decree is simple, but fundamental. A thought is passive. It flows. It can be positive, negative, or neutral. A decree, on the other hand, is active. It is not a suggestion. It is an order. When I decree, "Today will be a day of abundance," I am not just wishing for something. I am emitting a vibration. And more importantly, I am aligning myself with it. The power is in the command, in the energy I put out there. And believe me, the universe responds. I began to use this power to my advantage in small details of my daily life. When I woke up, my first words were, "Today I am in perfect health, prosperity, and peace." I was not asking, I was ordering my being, my body, the quantum field. And the changes began to appear, not because the universe answered my request, but because I created a resonance with what I desired. and the circumstances began to align. I saw a transformation from the inside out. There's nothing magical about it. Science tells us that the human mind has a direct influence on matter, and when you issue a decree with emotion, you are programming your mind to create results. Every cell in your body aligns with what you have declared, and then the universe conspires in your favor, like an orchestra conducted by your words. Of course, this is not something that can be learned overnight, but consistency in your decrees is key. It is not a matter of saying something once and expecting miracles. If it were that simple, everyone would be a millionaire and healthy with just one sentence. The secret is to keep up the daily command. Repeat it, affirm it, and feel as if it were already a reality. This changes your subconscious programming. I went further and began to apply the decree not only to myself, but to everything around me. As I declared, I am worthy of prosperity. In every aspect of my life, I began to see opportunities open up. The words became vehicles of transformation. And over time, I realized that everything around me was vibrating at the same rate because I was vibrating. My decree was not an expectation, it was a certainty. Now I understand that the law of attraction is not a philosophical theory, it is physics. When you emit a clear and unwavering frequency, you attract the reality that matches your vibration. And that is why I am so strict with my decrees, because they are what shape my reality. And then the transformation begins to happen quickly and impressively. It was when I understood the power of the decree that I began to notice something. Almost immediately, my mind reacted as if it had been given a new map. It stopped wandering through random thoughts and began to operate in the direction I had determined. It was like programming an internal GPS, and the clearer the destination, the faster the reprogramming. It was no longer a question of, I hope it happens, but of, it's already moving. The most impressive thing was to notice how my body was changing too. The vibration, yes, literally, the energetic frequency of my field, was adjusting to the new order. I started walking differently, talking differently, breathing differently. People noticed, and I knew it wasn't a coincidence, it was coherence. My internal state was in sync with the reality I chose to live in. That's not motivation, that's biology. This vibrational shift creates a kind of silent but powerful attraction. Things would start to appear in my path as if they had been magnetized. Phone calls, meetings, ideas, signs. It was as if the universe was responding, received. Here it is. And this doesn't depend on religion, it depends on frequency. The vibration you emit controls the type of experience you attract. It's that simple, but it doesn't stop there. Perception changes. I started seeing doors where before I only saw walls. Opportunities didn't just appear out of nowhere. They were always there, I just didn't see them. When the mind is programmed for scarcity, it ignores abundance. When you realign with expansion, you begin to see with new eyes. It's like replacing a cloudy lens with a crystal clear one. Everything is revealed. Another phenomenon I observed was a change in automatic behavior. I stopped reacting with anger or anxiety when faced with challenges. It was as if I had activated a new internal software, one that was more intelligent and more focused. It wasn't perfection, it was mastery. The external world stopped dictating my internal state, and that for me was true liberation. Getting out of autopilot and taking the wheel. These transformations happen in a cascade. First the mind, then the body, then the environment. Everything responds to the new command. And even if something challenging comes along, the impact is different, because now there is a solid internal structure, no longer vulnerable to chaos. External reality ceases to be a mirror of fear and becomes a reflection of conscious intention. This is true modern alchemy. I would say that the key is to create emotional consistency with what you decree. It is not enough to say, "I am prosperous," with fear in your chest. You have to feel as if it were already true. When this coherence is established, the field responds. The universe is sensitive to emotion, not to doubt. And when this happens, something powerful is activated. Total empowerment. And it was exactly at this point in the journey that a phrase began to emerge every morning, almost like a vibrational password. A phrase that summarizes all of this in simple words but loaded with power. I am the creator of my reality. Today I choose thoughts of abundance. The universe conspires in my favor. This phrase has become my starting point. It is not just a pretty statement. It is a code, a quantum key. When I repeat it first thing in the morning, I am not just saying something to the wind. I am programming, with conviction, every cell, every vibration, every particle of my energy field. I discovered that repeating this phrase in the first few minutes of the day changes everything. And not by magic, but by neuroplasticity. The brain, in an alpha state, absorbs everything that is emotionally charged more easily. And if this phrase is said with presence, it goes deep. Not only in the conscious mind, but in the subconscious, the place where reality is shaped before it is experienced. Every time I wake up, before I even open my eyes, I think about these words. I bring up a mental image that matches them. I see doors opening, smiles appearing, energy flowing. I don't let the phrase be dry, I live it. And the more I live it, the more real it becomes. I felt a wave of warmth in my chest just by repeating with truth, the universe conspires in my favor. The power of this phrase lies in its structure. First, it affirms my power, I am the creator. Then my conscious choice, today I choose. And finally, the connection with the quantum field, the universe conspires. It's like aligning mind, intention, and reality into a single vibration. And the most curious thing, the more I repeat it, the more natural it becomes. And the more natural, the more powerful. Over time, I began suggesting this practice to others. Some scientist friends thought it was too simplistic until they tried it for 7 days straight. The result? One of them received an unexpected job offer, another had an inexplicable improvement in his health. Of course, it wasn't the phrase itself, but the inner alignment it provoked. The phrase is just the spark. The fire comes from within. I don't use this phrase as a crutch, but as a tool. There are days when I wake up disconnected, scattered, with my mind already wanting to run into chaos. And that's when it shows its power. All it takes is a moment of pause, a touch of presence, and there it is. I am the creator of my reality. And there you have it. The axis returns. The field stabilizes. The vibration rises. This practice has become my personal morning alignment ritual. And when I notice that my energy is dense or disconnected, I return to the phrase as if I were coming home. It reminds me of what matters. It reminds me of who I am. It reminds me that the external world is a consequence, not a cause, and that I can choose, each morning, the kind of reality I want to experience. This is the seed I plant every day, and it blooms in ways I can't always predict, but it always bears fruit. And that's why when I close my eyes at night, I know that tomorrow is already being created, because what is planted consciously at dawn blooms synchronically. In the following hours, if you've made it this far, you've already realized that there's no such thing as coincidence when it comes to the reality you live in. Everything starts with what you declare. Everything changes with what you choose to believe as soon as you wake up. Don't wait for a miracle after the chaos. Create a miracle before the day begins. Make the dawn your altar and your words your most powerful prayer.